This video is about multiplying decimals. Zoom in so we can see these things a little bit better. Okay. There we go. Alright, this literally step-by-step brings you with how to multiply decimals. So we're going to read this once first, and then we will apply it with our 4 examples below. So first you would have to rewrite the problem, putting one factor on the bottom and the other on top. Remember, the factor is just one of the numbers you multiply. So a number that's being multiplied. So on a multiplication problem, you have 2 factors, a number being multiplied. So 4.5 is called a factor, and 3 is called a factor. Okay? Then you'd begin with the ones place in the bottom number, and you'd multiply. Again, this is from right to left, which is abnormal, because normally you guys always hear left to right, just like you're reading a book. So right to left, and the top number. So we're looking at the ones place in the bottom number, and then multiplying to the top one, and then the bottom number, ones place again, over to the next one, and so on. This is begin with the ones place in the bottom. Begin with the most right place. With the most right place value. Not the ones place. Most right place value. Okay. So in the end, it kind of looks like we've gone up and then sideways. Now, when you're multiplying those products, you're going to want to record those below the line that you have underneath the 2 stacked factors. Then, if the bottom number has multiple digits, so there's something to the left, you're going to go to the next place value to the left after you're done with the most right place value, and then you'll repeat that same process, but using the next number to the left, so the next tens place over. Now, if that's the case, now every time you go over to the next tens place, you've got to put a 0 where you're recording all of those different products below that line to represent the place value change. So if you have just multiplied in the ones place and you're going to the tens place, you're going to record 1 more 0. If you're going over to the hundreds place, you're going to record 2 zeros. So there's a pattern there, as many zeros that are in the number is as many zeros you're recording. Again, I don't like this going to the tens place, going a tens place over. Going a hundreds place over. Going a thousands place over. Because you might not be starting in the ones place, you might be starting in the tens place, and then going to the ones place, and then the tens place, and then the hundreds, and so on. So every time you've moved over, you add a 0. So now we're going to add each row of numbers. So after that, you'll have rows of numbers. You'll have as many rows as you place values in the bottom factor. So you would add all of those numbers, and that sum will be your final product. The product is the answer in a multiplication problem. Okay. Now the final product must have the same number of decimal places behind the decimal as the 2 factors did combined. So if you had 6.4 times 9.0210, you would have to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 places behind the decimal after you multiply. Just as when you multiplied integers last year, there are some rules when we have signs. If you have same signs when you're multiplying, so you have a positive number times a positive number, then you'll have a positive product. That's also true if you have a negative number times a negative number. As long as the signs are the same, then you're going to have a positive product. But if your signs are different, then you're going to have a negative product. So if you have a positive times a negative, you're going to have a negative product. Likewise, if you have a negative times a positive, you'll have a negative product. Okay, so now looking at some examples, we've got 4.5 times 3. I like to have the number with the most places on the top. That's totally up to you though. Like saying 4.5 and then 3. Now when you multiply, you do not have to line up decimals. So I'm starting with the most right place value in the bottom number, 3. And I go 3 times 5 is 15. Carry the 1. 3 times 4 is 12. Plus 1 is 13. If I had another place value, this is where I would add the 0. And now I can add whatever I have on those lines. So 1, 3, 5. I've got to make sure that I had one decimal from 4.5 and no decimals from 3. So now I've got to have one decimal place in my answer. So the product of 4.5 and times 3 is 13.5. Both of those numbers were positive since they were the same signs. I know this is a positive 13.5. Now we're going to look at negative 15.6 times negative 2. Those signs are also the same, which means we're going to have a positive answer. And for fun, I'm going to put the 2 on top and the 15.6 on bottom. So now I've got 6 times 2 is 12. And then we've got, now we're going over a place, over a tens spot. So we're going to put a 0 in that place to represent that we've moved over tens, 1 tens place. So I've got 5 times 2, which is 10. And now I'm over another 10 spot, which is 2 total 10 spots, so I need 2 total zeros. And I've got 1 times 2, which is 2. To get the final product, I need to add all of those numbers. 2 plus 0 plus 0 is 2. 1 plus 0 plus 0 is 1. And 1 plus 2 is 3. In our problem, in our multiplication problem, the factors had 1 decimal spot in 15.6 and nothing in 2. So I need to have 1 decimal spot in the final product. So this is going to be 31.2, and because both of those numbers were negative, this is a positive 31.2. Both of those numbers had the same sign, so there was a positive 31.2. And when we're adding and we have 2 numbers that have the same sign, we combine, which would mean to add, which looks like a positive sign. When you have 2 of the same signs when you're multiplying, you're going to use a positive sign in your product. Okay, now I've got 2.5 times 1.2, so I'm going to stack the 2 factors, 2.5, 1.2, multiply symbol. Okay, and we're starting with, this is 2 times 5, which is 10. So 2 times 5 is 10. Now I go 2 times 2 is 4, plus the 1 makes it 5. Okay. And now we're ready to go to the next tens over. Since we're going 1 10 over, we need a 0 placeholder. So now I've got 1 times 5, which is 5, and 1 times 2, which is 2. And now I can add those numbers. 0 plus 0 is 0. 5 plus 5 is 10. 5 plus 5 is 10. 1 plus 2 is 3. And in our multiplication problem, we had a decimal place with the 5, a decimal place with the 2. So altogether we had 2 decimal places. 2 decimal places in my final answer means the product is 3. This was a negative times a positive, which means our product has to be negative. So we have negative 3. Now we'll have, this is positive times negative, so the product has to be negative. Okay, now we've got 9.7 times 6.4. 6.4, 9.7. Okay. We've got 7 times 4, which is 28. Carry the 2. 7 times 4 is 28. 7 times 6 is 42. Plus 2. 42 plus 2 is 44. And now we're ready to go to the next 10 spot over. We've gone over 1 10 spot, so we put 1 placeholder 0. I've got 9 times 4 is 36. So there's a 6, and I carry the 3. 9 times 4 is 36. And then 9 times 6 is 54, plus 3 is 57. 9 times 6 is 54, plus the 3 that I had is 57. Now we can add all of those together. 8 plus 0 is 8. 4 plus 6 is 10. 4 plus 7 is 11. Plus 1 is 12. And 1 plus 5 is 6. There are 2 decimal spots in the multiplication problem, so there should be 2 decimal spots in the answer. So the 0 and the 8 will go behind the decimal. So the product of 9.7 and 6.4 is 62.808. And because we had a positive times negative, the final product is negative. This is also kind of a review from last year. You guys multiplied decimals in the 6th grade, so this should be, this should be fairly simple. Oh. Alrighty, this is page 7. This is page 7 in our binders. That means your homework is page 8. I would just like to remind you of these 2 special multiplication rules. If you multiply by 1, you get the same number back. If you multiply by 0, the product is 0. And I would like to do one of these problems with you. Let's look at number 7. Looking at number 7, I've got 4.04 times 1.9. So I've stacked my 2 factors on top. Now I'm going to say that 9 times 4 is 36. Carry the 3. 9 times 0 is 0, plus 3 is 3. 9 times 4 is 36. I'm going a tens place over. Since I'm going 1 tens place over, I need to have a 0. Now I'll have 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times 0 is 0. 1 times 4 is 4. And now I can add those 2 lines. 6 plus 0 is 6. 3 plus 4 is 7. 6 plus 0 is 6. And 3 plus 4 is 7. In the multiplication problem, there is 1, 2, 3 numbers behind decimal spots. Behind a decimal, sorry. So we need 1, 2, 3 places behind a decimal. We've got 7.676. This was a negative times a positive, so the final product has to be negative. I do want to show you one other way that you could have written this multiplication problem, and then this process would have looked different, but you would have gotten the same answer. So what is your answer? So the 2.9 was on top. 2.9 times 4.04. The decimals don't have to be lined up. So now we've got 4 times 9, which is 36, carrying the 3. 4 times 1, which is 4, plus the 3, which is 7. We're going a tens place over. Since we're going a tens place over, we're done with the 4 and going a tens place over, we need 1 0. So I've got 0 times 9 is 0, 0 times 1 is 0, and I'm done with that. And we're going to go over another tens space, since we're going over a second tens space. That was for our first tens space, our second tens space. And I've got 4 times 9, which is 36, carry the 3, 4 times 1, which is 4, plus 3 is 7. Now I can add all three of those numbers. 6 plus 0 plus 0 is 6, 7 plus 0 plus 0 is 7, 0 plus 6 is 6, 7 plus nothing is 7. And again, there are 3 decimal places in your multiplication problem, so there should be 3 decimal places in your answer, your product, 7.676. The difference here is this has 2 rows of numbers and this has 3 rows of numbers. If you put the number that has more place values on top, you'll have less rows of numbers to add. If you put the shorter number on top, less place values on top, then the numbers that you're going to have to add might be smaller, but there's going to be more of them. So just a personal preference type thing. If you have any questions, comments, concerns regarding the lesson on multiplying decimals or the homework, so page 7 or page 8, please don't hesitate to send me a Schoology message, shoot me an email, or find me before or after school or class.